Good morning. My name is Rita, Salama, and I serve on your worship team, and I'm also your celebrant for this morning's water communion service here in Wenatchee, Washington, where we are blessed with the mighty waters of the Columbia River flowing through our community. Welcome to you, old friends and new, young and old. You are an essential part of our celebration today. Whether today is your first or your 1000th Sunday in our midst, we are stronger because you are here with us. We are one people of many beliefs, many origins, sexualities, and genders. We are all growing, all learning, all loved, just as you are. You are welcome here. If you are visiting, you are especially welcome. The people on Zoom are also with us, so let's turn and greet them by waving to the camera above the exit sign. And now let's take a moment to greet those around you, especially if it's somebody you don't know well. To be continued later. It's so good to be together this morning in all the ways we gather. We are so glad you're here. One raindrop can't do much of anything by itself, but add enough raindrops and you have enough water to float a boat. It is the same with our Sunday worship services. Thank you to our greeters and musicians and for the tech support, announcement loop, and service graphics, for our Zoom host and coffee host, and our religious educators. You float our boat. There are a few announcements that I would like to draw your attention to. The CUUF jewelry sale is September 18th through the 20th. We are accepting donations now. There's a bin in the office. It's white and it's marked for the jewelry sale. And Heather has said that you can find her after the service, Heather Seaman, there's more than one Heather, after the services today to sign up to help. And we would love to borrow a jewelry cleaner if anybody has one to borrow. And the other announcement is, well, I don't need to tell you that we live in crazy times. That's no new announcement. But it is a challenge to stay informed about social justice issues and what to do if you would like to take action. To help with this, the social justice team has a new article series. Check it out. It's in our emailed newsletter that comes out on Thursday. And that includes the details about the other happenings at this congregation. And if you don't receive it, see a greeter or fill out a card in the back of the seat in front of you. Our land acknowledgement starts with an excerpt from the Wenatchee Valley Museum and Cultural Center's website and was written by our own Chris Rader. For thousands of years, a permanent village sat on the banks of the Columbia River just above the mouth of the Wenatchee River. Its Salish-speaking occupants called themselves the Pisquosa, though they and their tributary river came to be known as the Wenatchee by the Sahaptin-speaking tribes to the south. The Wenatchee/Pisquosa were a semi-nomadic people who moved around the Wenatchee watershed, hunting and gathering food in season. They had several permanent villages with pit and mat houses at Cashmere, Monitor, the Wenatchee-Columbia confluence, Swakane, and Squealchuck, as well as temporary dwelling sites at Leavenworth and elsewhere. And now from the Colville Tribes website. A large summer village sat at the mouth of Icicle Creek. At least 200 Pisquosa lived at this location throughout the summer, but this population soared to several thousands at the peak of the salmon fishing season when visitors from neighboring villages and tribes came to take advantage of this site's outstanding fishing. An 1855 treaty provided for the establishment of the Wintachapam Fishery Reserve around the Pisquosa fishing locations. but the treaty-specified location of the reserve remains unsurveyed to this day. CUUF stands with our Native American friends as they seek to have their rights recognized and restored. And now we will be singing hymn number 389 from the Gray Hymnal if you wanted to see the tune, but the words will be on the screen. So please rise in body or spirit and join in.
We're going to sing this as a round.
Always a perfect way to start worship, that song. Strong, rhythmic. But now these words. We gather today in this moment, in this little place. From mountain streams and marshlands we've come. From inland cities and dry desert plains. From industrial hubs beside great lakes or powerful oceans. From small homes along bubbling creeks and the banks of mighty rivers we have come. We gather. We gather to connect our stories and our hope and our memory to the mighty river of faith. The mighty river that carved our valley from ancient stones to one another. We honor the sacred flow of water and streams that nourished our ancestors and rains that quenched their thirst and continue to quench ours. The oceans that connect us beyond borders. We can see water as sacred and holy, more than a mere resource. We might recall those called the water protectors who resisted its standing rock, who made indelible the ancient wisdom that water is life, and that justice and generosity burble through how we use every drop, how we treat the earth. We honor all who come here today carrying hope. We are those who promise to move together like a river towards beloved community, resilient, connected, and alive. May this gathering be a confluence of purpose, of healing, and an hour of renewed commitment to the universal love and liberation that moves all of us. In this spirit, with these words, I call you into worship.
Each week we light a chalice, as many other UU congregations do. It's a symbol of our Unitarian Universalist faith. Please join me in saying the chalice lighting words that are on the screen or in your order of service. We light this chalice as a symbol of reunion. With water we affirm that our hearts flow with one another, that we share the fountains of joy. We shelter all through storms of grief. We guide one another through the rapids of transformation, and we rest together on ponds of stillness. Together we honor the spirit of water in its many forms and its life-giving essence.
So all of you should know that in the United States, really in the world, Unitarians and Universalists were two completely separate organizations and groups for hundreds of years. In the United States, we liked each other, Unitarians and Universalists. We worked together at times. We learned from each other, but we really did not identify with one another. Thomas Starr King, the 19th century Unitarian minister, who was born Universalist, by the way. When he served in California, he quipped that the only reason that the Unitarians and the Universalists haven't already joined is that they are too closely related to be married. He also said the big difference between the Unitarians and Universalists, the Universalists and the Unitarians, first and second, is that one thinks that God is too good to damn them forever, and the other that they are too good to be damned forever. Think about which side of the theology you live. About that time, the Thomas Starr King was quipping about Unitarians and Universalists. A young man named Marion Franklin Ham was born. He was born a Unitarian in 1867, and he became ordained in 1898, and he started his career working as a journalist, a bank teller, and a minister. He served for 6 years in Chattanooga, Tennessee, and then 6 years in Dallas, Texas. And then in 1909, he moved to Massachusetts, and he served as the leading minister in Reading, Massachusetts. And then he went to Waverly, where he spent 25 years. And then he ended his career in Gardner, Massachusetts. When he was in Waverly, the Unitarians and the Universalists began to talk more seriously about becoming one. Started having all sorts of practices and gatherings and wonderings, and there was also resistance. Some Unitarians were afraid that they would be watered down or thinned out or have strange ideas added in, and the Universalists were just afraid of being swallowed up and forgotten. In 1933, Reverend Ham, to encourage this merger, wrote a hymn, and the song was titled, "As tranquil streams that meet and merge and flow as one to seek the sea." It's a long title. 20 years later, in 1954, the Unitarian youth and the Universalist youth, the teenagers, got together and formed a youth-run organization. They figured if the adults couldn't do it, they could do it. So they formed a single organization. And at that merger, at that great gathering of youth, forming Liberal Religious Youth, LRY, they sang this song, Tranquil Streams. Marion was happy to hear about this, but he died 2 years later, 89 years old. And then, after all sorts of discussions and meetings and falling apart meetings and new meetings, finally, the adult Unitarians and the adult Universalists met side by side in separate assemblies to vote on full merger. And when they'd all agreed, they all came together into one room and they sang this song, Tranquil Streams. Our association was not officially formed until May of 1961, which was a month before I was born. And then 18 years later, I became an active leader in LRY. And I heard about this song and this story and the fact that the youth were first. Along the Front Range of the Rocky Mountains, I went from congregation to congregation all the way down into Texas. And always we sang this song. I associate Reverend Ham's song with today's water ceremony. This will be the 30th time we have had done a water ceremony at Cuff. We held the first one in 1996 and have held it every September since. So for our wisdom reading today, I will read 4 verses of this historical old school songs. As tranquil streams that meet and merge and flow as one to seek the sea, our kindred hearts and minds unite to build a church that shall be free, free from the bonds that bind the mind to narrow thought and lifeless creed, free from a social code that fails to serve the cause of human need, a freedom that reveres the past but trusts the dawning future more and bids the soul in search of truth adventure boldly and explore. Oh, prophetic church, the future waits your liberating ministry. Go forward in the power of love. Proclaim the truth that makes us free. So, from nearly 100 years ago, echoes of Unitarian and Universalist unity. We have a few children here, and you may now go. We'll go ahead and sing Go Now Together. Go with each other to find meaning in the spirit of love that we share. go with each other. You don't need to form the bridge. Share. So the new practice is that if there are fewer than 10 kids, we'll just go ahead and skip the bridge and just let them go. Well, all right. You want to bring it up to the board and have a controversial meeting. We'll see if we can stay together despite that. Now we're going to engage in another ritual of caring community. We're going to focus on any recent sorrows or joys in our personal lives. This is not a time for announcements and not a time for political opinions. It's just a time for each person to share something of significance in their lives, especially one that can't be repeated later, because we're all going to get a chance to say something later, at least the name of a place. If you come forward, say your name to them. I'll have the microphone, and then drop a stone into the water of caring community. The great American writer James Baldwin, back in the 20th century, in the book Nothing Personal, he reflected on the stubborn light that must have blazed in his parents' eyes for them to survive what they survived as black people in the first half of the 20th century and the last half of the 19th. They nurtured that light in him, and he honored that light. And he added, "This is why one must say yes to life and embrace it whenever it is found, for nothing is fixed. Nothing is certain. Forever and forever and forever it is not fixed. The earth is always shifting. The light is always changing. The sea does not cease to grind down rock. Generations do not cease to be born, and we are responsible to them because we are the only witnesses they have. The sea rises, and the light fails, and lovers cling to each other, and the children cling to us. And the moment we cease to hold to each other, the moment we break faith with one another, the sea will engulf us, and the light will go out. So one way we connect, one way we hold one another is by marking our time together. This is Sunday. Sunday is a central time for us to gather. We may gather and connect in other ways and at any time through the week, but we know always this is an anchor that shapes who we are, shapes our relationships, reminds us of who we're connected to. Holidays always help us frame our living. Many people think of Christmas and Hanukkah. So many people love Christmas. They love decorating their houses and wearing the clothes and sticking the things on their head and who knows what kinds of strange things they're baking and sharing. Even if they have no faith in any resurrected Jesus or even in Jesus as a divine light born into this world, they still love it. And it connects people. And it moves us, and it shapes the culture. This culture, so dominated by Christianity, is shaped by Christmas. We return to it every year. In other countries, it's Eid, or Diwali, or some other puja that brings people together. It shapes who they are. It gives identity and connection. In June, we might celebrate Juneteenth, which celebrates the freedom from slavery in this country. More specifically, it commemorates a very small event in the history of Texas. Because history is never simple. It is all complicated. There are many different things going on. And we try to clarify it and say something about who we are. The Emancipation Proclamation declaring that most slaves were to be set free in all rebel states was signed by President Lincoln in September of 1862. He expanded that presidential proclamation in 1861. But it was not until 1863, so it was in 1861 that he gave the first proclamation, 1862 that he expanded it. And then in 1863, the proclamation was officially enforced by General Gordon Granger in Texas. Of course, the 13th Amendment of our Constitution, truly ending slavery, was not fully ratified until 1865. Then there were even slaves and indentured servants in Delaware and Kentucky who finally got freedom. But on that day that General Gordon Granger spoke and read the proclamation, on June 19th, which is now called Juneteenth, it was a day when thousands of enslaved people heard and realized that they were already, in that moment, hearing those words, free citizens of the United States. Texas was the first day to celebrate that day of emancipation in June 19th. They celebrated it in 1866 and have continued to do so various ways throughout the state. Still, I note Juneteenth did not become a national holiday until 2021. The stories that we share, how we're connected, how we treat one another, what kind of community we create is always ongoing. But we choose this one moment to say something about racism in this country, and justice, and fairness, and those of us who listen to the voice of the water that gives itself freely to everyone. Those who listen can use that day or any day to proclaim the power that moves through our lives. Today is a UU Holy Day. It's called Ingathering in some places. It's called Water Ceremony in some places. It's called Water Communion, and sometimes all of those all at once. It's sort of an echo of a long ago in time when wealthy Unitarians in New England would move all north from the hot humidity of the central eastern states. And they would close their churches. I mean, almost everyone was gone, so they would just close the church buildings. It was said that they were the only Christians that God could trust to be good, whether they were in worship or not. Here, during the summer, as in many places, attendance drops. You can see it significantly dropping back in June and July as school ends and the demands of children change. And so we celebrate coming together on the first Sunday after Labor Day. Affirm this gathering and the power that is here. Maybe a small group, but we are mighty. Mighty is the greatest river. A drop, of course, of water does not make a river. A drop does not flow like a river, though it can kind of trickle along. A river is formed by numerous drops of water. It's the joining together of countless drops that create the flow and the real flow of life, of unity in life, and connectedness, in oneness. And so we gather. Of course, the metaphor of water doesn't invoke little streams coming in, tranquil streams, doesn't evoke everything. There's always frogs and flies and fish and fallen leaves that make a part of any stream. It's a complicated thing, but we focus on this one moment and the flowing of water together to say something about how powerful, how important it is to come together, how we come from many different experiences. First time the water ceremony was created by Unitarian Universalists, it was women who were coming from all across the United States, and they were working independently and didn't know each other, and they come into this great confluence and a big meeting, and they poured the water together to say, we are one river. And even though we're going to go back to our homes in different states, we are still one river, changing the world, affirming women's power and its importance in human community. And so we gather this morning tenderly, like the drops of dew on a leaf, hopefully like gathered raindrops in a cloud on a dry day. Or yesterday, there was a hope when it was the air quality was just in the red, and it was dangerous. And then that rain came down, and there was the sense that the air could be clean again. Gleefully, water comes together like water rushing from one stream into another, or mighty confluences of rivers. The water bubbling, full of joy to be with one another, to be together as a single body, deeply, flowing under all other things, like groundwater beneath us all, still there, nurturing trees. We gather from every direction for another year of growth, another year of deepening, another year of companionship and hope. We gather like the water that joins everywhere, across all creation, that connects us to all life. For only with water is there life on earth, and it flows, and it flows. I was listening to a little thing on the radio, NPR, someone talking about going to Mars, and the other person really didn't understand, the reporter didn't really understand why anyone would want to do that. And then the guy said, there's something optimistic and hopeful about life itself, that it always wants to expand, it wants to find new ways to exist, new places to exist. So we come here, we speak briefly about where our water comes from, and then we pour it together into a single bowl, affirming again that we are always part of a mighty river that is greater than this congregation, part of the great river, a beloved community of true justice, of compassion and care and equity, which we are not hearing a lot about from certain portions of the news media today. The love that flows in water. I will begin with water that was taken from last year's ceremony and has been taken from every ceremony since we began here. The flow of this congregation itself flowing into the bowl. And then I'll share some water that I brought here, that my wife and I gathered in July. And then each of you can come forward. We'll go and we'll come in this way. So come up here, speak in the microphone if you'd like to, and then put it into the bowl. So first, water from all our previous ceremonies. Just sealed. Always together, always flowing together in many ways. And then when I was with both of my daughters and all four of my grandchildren and my sons-in-laws and my wife, we were at Lake Sammamish for my birthday. We went to the southern part of Lake Sammamish, and it was a joyful, beautiful day, and we all splashed around in the water and had a gorgeous day. And from that experience, I bring joy and love and family and family love together into this gathering. And anyone else wants to come up, go ahead and make a line, and then each person speak. If you didn't think to bring water, which happens often with me, we have a pitcher of water, and you can pour a little of that. Ben?
Douro River, Portugal, 3 weeks ago, important because of port wine.
This is water from the El Salvo River in Michigan, where I love to kayak, flows into the Great Lakes. And so, yeah.
So this water is just going to represent time. In 1997, our two oldest daughters graduated from high school and headed off to college. One went to Gonzaga, and the other went to SMU in Dallas. That year, we gathered water from Lake Windermere, BC, the headwaters of the Columbia River for the 1997 water service. Traveled downstream 28 years to 2025, and our oldest granddaughter, who just graduated from high school, will be a freshman at UW this year. So this water celebrates those new beginnings as the flow of life continues.
This water I collected yesterday at Eagle Lake up in the Sawtooth, elevation 7,000 feet. And this is the same water I was drinking on the way out.
I've been blessed to travel a lot around the world, and I never remember to bring water from Costa Rica or Switzerland or wherever. But one time somebody brought some irrigation water. And I thought, that's perfect, because this valley would not be what it was without irrigation. And this is what sustains our agriculture and recreation, and we're able to have a beautiful place because of irrigation. Probably, who knows? Where, I mean, again, it represents water as life.
So in my travels around, I always forget to bring water, and I went to a land of water this spring and of course forgot to bring it back. But I did spend a lot of time thinking about how fortunate we are to just turn a tap on and have fresh, clear water and not have to drink out of bottled waters or boil our water. And I don't think it's a miracle, but we're certainly fortunate to just have the tap water, most of which we use for showering and flushing and don't even bother to drink. But anyway, I've just brought some tap water, which is a minor miracle for all of us.
And this water is from whatever sacred underground river fills my well at home and nourishes my trees.
Hello, I'm Heather Coonrad. This water is from the camp out that we had this summer.
Lauren Marachak. So I have water from two sources. One is from Mica Lake. So I think the Columbia River is such a massive watershed that is another of the source waters of Columbia. And then I went kayaking with some friends the other day, and I fought myself because apparently I've been pulling on the stroke. And you're supposed to push. So here I am, push, double working every stroke and going. Anyway, it was a lesson that I learned, and I'm better for it. And if anybody wants to use some of this water, you're welcome to it.
It is hard to learn to row a boat. Yes.
So I'm Betsy Pierce, and I'm like Ronnie. This is actually irrigation water, which I value so much, but it represents, I love the coastal, Pacific coast. Didn't make it to the ocean, but this is from Alki Beach representing.
I'm Stephanie Cole. This water is from the waterfall that flows into the lotus pond of my friend's backyard. This represents friendship, life, and harmony.
This water is in a vessel that was given in a gathering of friends, and so it just represents friendship.
Hello, greetings from Olympia, from OUUC, Olympia Unitarian Universalist Congregation. This water is from the Chehalis River Basin. Scatter Creek is a tributary. And 4 of the 5 siblings live in that same valley just down the street from my 98-year-old mother who still lives on the ranch. So this water is from my well that comes from Scatter Creek.
I love living on the Columbia River, and I like to go hiking over at ancient lakes and go right down to the river and along the river. So this is from Ancient Lakes, Columbia.
Water is a huge element of my spiritual belief and also of family connections and energy connections throughout the world. Water is something that the drops of water in here may have at one time been in the body of famous people or of humble people who have long come before us. It may have been in clouds somewhere in the world that I've never seen. It may have been in the deep depths of the ocean. The water comes and goes and flows, and that's incredibly amazing to me, and I just want to share some of that.
I'm Darius Severson. This is some water from my house. My mom would have done it if she weren't in the back right now, so she asked me to do it. It represents struggle and persistence and family. So.
I heard the Pettits were going to come out for this ceremony, so you might tap on the door and tell them we're doing this. Yes.
I'm Owen, and this was water I collected a few years ago in a thunderstorm, and to me it represents strength and renewed life.
I'm Carol. This is tap water. However, to me it represents the water in the ocean, in the rivers, in the lakes, and in pools, where I have enjoyed wonderful times with family and friends over many years.
Come on, buddy.
Earlier today, Rita mentioned the coming together of the Icicle River and the Wenatchee River, where the Piscosa hosted thousands of people during salmon seasons. And that area is dear to my heart. I lived for 35 years in Leavenworth, spent a week with 33 family members swimming in the Icicle and swimming in Wenatchee River and doing other things this past summer. And so this water represents fun family times.
We're going to use Laura's water. So this represents, we recently were able to go to the Southern Pacific. So it represents water from the peaceful ocean that we couldn't bring home on the airplane. And we had a few opportunities of a lifetime, maybe bucket list opportunities, to swim with humpback whales and manta rays and groups of eagle rays. And just the sentient beings that depend on the health of our ocean and our water and how peaceful they were. And what a grateful experience that was for us.
All of that. And I'm glad that Border Patrol didn't ask to see my Facebook on the way back.
I bring this water on behalf of my wife Penny and myself. I love water. Couldn't live without it. I'm made up mostly of it, I guess. And so I appreciate it a lot. And this water is from the Alps, where we had the opportunity and challenges to be in the last 2-3 weeks.
Good morning, my name is James. I did not read the weekend notes. So this water is actually from Owen's Tap, and I suppose it represents gratitude for friendship.
Hi there, I'm Piper Pettit. This is our first water ceremony, so this will represent new experiences and new community. Very grateful to be welcomed here and very much loving being a part of this community. Thank you.
This water is from our tap, so we moved into a new home this spring. So we're very happy about that, and just happy that it's East Wenatchee, so we're home.
And the water also symbolically represents water from the River Seine in Paris, where we spent 2 weeks with our grandkids and had a great time, so it's family time too.
Well, we were delinquent, I guess, in bringing water, but what water means to me, we both have stories about that, so I'll pour a little bit of this water in. In particular, when I'm at the ocean, I find that the waves coming in and the waves going out resonate with the rhythms in my body, and it's such a peaceful, wonderful place to be, and just let go of everything. And so I've always thought of water as an emotional cleansing, and Jerry will tell you what the latest emotional cleansing we had.
Oh yeah, okay, so we're up at Lake Chelan, the dock at Lucerne, and the happiest moment of my summer was standing there watching Kathy strip her clothes off and jump into the lake with all sorts of people around. And that's a very cleansing experience.
I did have underclothes on just to represent the whole thing. But another thing that I forgot to say is we saw a toad up there, and that is such an incredible symbol of the health of the planet, and it was just wonderful. Anyway.
Well, I was delinquent too, not reading my notes, but I will borrow from this picture in honor of beautiful Lake Chelan, where my family has been fortunate to gather together for over 50 years. I think 4 generations now have been there, and wonderful family time, but the crystal blue, pristine, sandy beach of Lake Chelan is just such a beautiful resource, and I appreciate it.
There are people on Zoom who would like to share what, if you're on Zoom, you can just pour some water from a glass into a bowl, and you could bring it later. What we always do at the end of the ceremony is that we take this water out and we pour it onto the roots of the tree. And so at any time someone wants to physically engage, even if they aren't physically here right now, that's a path. But if anyone on Zoom wants to share where they have gathered water and where their water comes from, please do so.
Steve Clem and Julie McAllister want to add water from Nason Creek, representing a new chapter in their lives.
That's it. I'm going to go ahead and take the water from here, which is today's experiences of joy and sorrow, and I'll add this to this water, and then I'll move towards the closing of the service. I love that the sharing, there's occasionally in some congregations, there's this tendency to focus more on place, and like, I went to the Alps or something like that, and it's all about distant places. I love that the theme over and over was the people that we connected to, the relationships that flow into this ceremony. Now Rita will talk about other ways and other things that flow through, other ways that our energy flows through this congregation.
CUF wouldn't exist without the financial gifts of our congregation. They pay for our professional staff, our ministry and programs, upkeep of our building and grounds, our utilities, and our dues to the Unitarian Universalist Association. But the impact of your offering isn't just limited to this space. Your gifts create a ripple effect within the congregation and out into the community at large. By financially supporting this congregation of love and acceptance, you are supporting people, our congregants, in their efforts to make a difference in themselves and in the world. We will now accept the offering. Thank you for your gifts. May your gifts ripple out through this congregation and the community at large. Thank you. And now please rise in body or spirit as we sing Blue Boat Home. The words will be on the screen. This is one of our favorite water ceremony songs.
To the beavers who swim in the Columbia River again, and the mighty river, the endless river of the salmon, the 5 salmon that swim up and down through their lives, to the power of water that lifts up trees, forms our economy, and brings us life and joy. Let all of this carry our lives, reminding us that we are together, always joined together in community, a community of love, a community of justice, a community of care. So may it be. Amen.
And now join me in the chalice lighting word, or chalice extinguishing words, that are on the screen. We extinguish this flame, but not the light of truth, the warmth of community, or the fire of commitment. These we carry in our hearts and embody in our lives until we are together again. And then Thomas will give you some instructions about what we will be doing next.
First, I take the water from the water. Our next year's ceremony, one of the many streams that flow. And then I'm going to carry this out. Those who wish to come with me out to the tree. We're going to walk out to the big tree. If there are people who have mobility issues, you can always wait for us to come back in, or you can come out with us and stand outside as we join in a circle around the tree, and then I'll say some blessing words and pour this water on our old tree. You want to be clear? And then we can come back in.